Today, we're diving deep into how the world's most elite fighters build their incredible fortunes. And let me tell you, it's about a whole lot more than just what happens in the cage. It's about building a legit empire. We're going to break it all down. The fight purses, the big-time endorsements, the crossover into media, and the ultimate goal, building their own businesses. So, let's kick things off with a number that just puts it all into perspective.
$200 million. Yep, that's the estimated net worth of one single fighter, Conor McGregor. Now that's not just a big number for a fighter, that is a massive number for any athlete on the planet. And it immediately makes you wonder,
exactly. How does one person in this sport build a fortune that's bigger than what entire teams in other sports make? Well, it's not by accident. It's a strategy. We're going to break down the 4 key ways they make it happen, from their very first paycheck to their biggest business deal. Let's start at the very beginning with the most fundamental piece of the puzzle.
This is the foundation, right? It's the money you earn for actually stepping in there and putting it all on the line. They call it the fight purse, but as you're about to see, it's way more complicated than just a single paycheck.
So in the UFC, the pay is all tiered, and the jump between those tiers is, well, it's massive. A new fighter might get, say, 10 grand to show up, and another 10 if they win. But once you start building a name for yourself, that purse explodes into the hundreds of thousands. And then, for the champions, the superstars, we're talking millions for one single night of work.
And this right here is a perfect look at that superstar level. Because of some leaked documents from a lawsuit, we got a peek at what a phenom like Ronda Rousey was really making. I mean, just look at these numbers for her fights with Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes, well over $4 million a pop. That's her base pay, sure, but it also includes bonuses and, crucially, a cut of that sweet pay-per-view money.
So this brings up that classic debate, right? UFC versus boxing pay. And really, they're two totally different animals. The UFC, it acts like a league, which means there's a more stable, consistent paycheck for everyone on the roster, leading to a higher average pay. Boxing, on the other hand, is all about the superstars. The guys at the top make absolutely insane money, but the fighters on the undercard, they often make way less than their UFC counterparts.
But, of course, you gotta hear the other side of the argument. A champion boxer like Terrence Crawford, he'll tell you that once you're at the top, boxing pays way more. His point is that the UFC is the big league of MMA, so you can't compare its average pay to all of boxing. You have to compare the top dogs, and in that fight, he argues, the boxers usually come out on top. It's a fascinating debate that really shows you the different financial worlds these two sports live in.
And get this, the money for the night doesn't even stop with the purse. The UFC also dishes out these $50,000 bonuses for a wild performance. For a guy like Charles Oliveira, that's not just pocket change. He's made over $1 million just from those bonuses. And then you have the almost legendary off-the-books locker room bonuses that executives might hand out for a performance that was just special. So a good night at the office can get really good.
Okay, so that's pillar number 1. Let's move on to the second one, because this is where the money starts to flow from outside the cage. It's all about turning that fame into a personal brand that companies want a piece of. Once a fighter is a household name, this income stream can get just as big as the fight purses.
And you can't talk about this without talking about the legend, George St. Pierre, GSP. He wasn't just an amazing champion, he built this image of discipline, class, and pure professionalism. And that clean-cut persona, well, it made him a magnet for major, mainstream corporations.
And just look at who he was working with. We're not talking about small-time sponsors here. We're talking about global giants. Under Armour, Coca-Cola, even Google. These are blue-chip companies that saw GSP as a powerful, safe bet to represent their brand, and you better believe they paid him millions to do it.
But here's the really cool part. You don't have to be the clean-cut hero to cash in. This is the perfect contrast. On one hand, you have Conor McGregor. His loud, notorious personality was perfect for lifestyle brands like Burger King and Beats by Dre. On the other hand, you have Khabib Nurmagomedov. His humble, faith-based identity attracted huge global brands like Toyota and others that aligned with his personal values. It just proves that at the end of the day, authenticity is what sells.
All right, pillar number 3. This is where things get really fun. It's all about leverage. Taking the fame you earned in the cage and using it to break into totally new industries that can be even more lucrative. And the most popular path? You guessed it, Hollywood.
Ronda Rousey really kicked the door down on this one. She was the UFC's first true female megastar, and she just seamlessly walked right into roles in huge blockbuster movies. And just recently, Conor McGregor made his big screen debut in the Roadhouse reboot and reportedly smashed the record for the highest paid debut actor who's also an athlete, pulling in over $5.5 million for his first movie role. Just insane.
But when you talk about crossovers, there's one guy who is just on another planet entirely, Brock Lesnar. He's a true, once-in-a-generation athlete who didn't just cross over, he completely dominated multiple worlds.
I mean, just look at this resume. It is absolutely ridiculous. An NCAA wrestling champion, a global icon in the WWE, and the UFC heavyweight champion. Think about that for a second. He's the only person in history to hold a world title in both the WWE and the UFC. His sheer ability to draw huge crowds, no matter the sport, made him an incredibly rich man.
And that brings us to the top of the mountain, the final and by far the most profitable pillar of a fighter's fortune. This is the end game. This is where you go from being an athlete on the payroll to being the owner. This is where generational wealth gets made.
$600 million. Let that sink in for a second. That was the reported price tag when Conor McGregor and his partners sold their majority stake in the Proper No. 12 whiskey brand. That one single business deal made him more money than his entire legendary fighting career combined. It's the ultimate example of a fighter building an empire.
And what's cool is that there's a whole playbook for how to do this. You can launch a global product like McGregor, you can start your own fight promotion like Khabib did, you can build iconic clothing lines and gyms like legends Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture did. Or, in the most extreme case, you can be like Rory and Gracie and literally co-found the entire sport as we know it today.
So, okay, we've got the 4 pillars: the purses, the endorsements, the crossovers, and owning your own business. But why all this hustle? What's driving all of this? Well, it all comes down to one simple, sobering fact. A fighter's career is a sprint, not a marathon.
This chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. An average pro athlete has this tiny little window, maybe 6 years, to make a lifetime's worth of money. Now compare that to a normal working career of 45 years. That very small window means you have to squeeze every single drop of financial opportunity out of your career, especially outside the cage.
And this is the gut punch. Making millions of dollars does not mean you're set for life. Studies have shown that a shocking number of pro athletes go broke just a couple of years after they retire. The paychecks are huge, but they stop coming. The expenses, though, those can last forever. And that's why building all those other sources of income isn't just a smart move, it's an absolute necessity. Which really brings us to our final question. With the sport getting bigger and the money getting crazier, the risks are growing too. For the fighters at the very top, the battle for financial freedom goes on long after that final bell. So you have to wonder, is building an empire outside the cage even a choice anymore? Or is it just what you have to do to survive? Thanks for